welcome to Beck Tench's Tech Bench. I am Beck Tench, and I am dedicating my first official video to a person who wrote me an email asking if there were any kinds of books or resources that I had under my sleeve to help become a better visual thinker. And so I thought I would use this platform as a way to address that question. So I thought maybe I could do a little visual thinking modeling as I answer the question. And that is, in one sense, because I want you to see how easy and messy and spontaneous I think visual thinking really is. And I think that visual thinking, let's write that word down, is an interesting combination of words. Oops. See, look, am I ready? Yes, you will be in the background, Marilyn. Visual thinking is an interesting combination of words. But also, I have a phrase that I like to use and that I feel like I do more often, and that is graphic listening. And I'll talk about that in a second. But that is something that I feel a little bit more akin to the productive parts of visual thinking for me. Regardless of that, the things that I want to share about the resources up my sleeve apply to both. I think it's really just, what are you trying to do with it? Are you trying to make marks to better understand how you feel about something? Or are you listening to even yourself, but most likely someone else, and documenting what they say so that then you can use that to have a conversation? So just two different ways to engage visuals and graphics in thought process, but one is more about figuring things out for yourself, and the other is more about maybe a dialogue. So regardless, there are some tools that I wanted to share. And as I was brainstorming the best ways to think about this, I kind of thought of three categories of resources that are meaningful to me. So the first category would be people. The second category would be books. And the third category, which is the most important, I think, is mindsets. And as I go through this, I hope you'll see, like, for example, maybe I'll draw a little person here to represent people, and maybe I'll draw a book here to represent books, and then maybe I'll draw a little brain here to represent mindsets. I guess a distinction I want to make, and one of the reasons why I was bringing up visual thinking and graphic listening, and just not wanting to represent myself too far down the road of sketchnoter, is that the same goes with bullet journaling, for example. I think that there's a tendency in our kind of content-driven media consumption patterns these days, with the ways that we have to sort of fight for algorithmic success, that people produce really polished, beautiful things that they share with the world. And I want you to see how unimportant that is to the power behind these things. There may be power in terms of reputation or sort of entrepreneurial success in being very polished with visual thinking or sketchnoting, but in terms of actually thinking, the polish doesn't matter so much as it is just getting stuff that is invisible in your head onto a surface that then you can refer to, remember, combine and merge with other things, etc. So anyway, here's some people. The first person that I want to put on your radar, if it's not already, is Dave Gray. He is a thinker, entrepreneur, artist, He's been at it for a long time. He had or has a company called Explain, like Explain, but it's no E. And I think he's in St. Louis. And Dave is so approachable. If you look at him for any length of time at all, you will notice this little stick figure was highly influenced by him. And he has a lot out there about how to just sort of get yourself drawing again as an adult, in particular in pursuit of thinking more visually and communicating more visually. And the thing about Dave that I think is also really great is that he has this thing called a visual vocabulary. It's like an alphabet. Um, like an alphabet ABC. If you start looking at these things, they're actually shapes that we use, and we combine those things to form words. And so that word is now something that we can use, and the same with drawing. So Dave would suggest that we have a certain kind of vocabulary for visual communication that that we can combine to make things that, obviously this one's the most, let's say that, because he also has dot and line art. He has a bunch of different ones, but there's maybe 12 that make a picture that we can use to convey something just like we can with words and sentences and paragraphs. So anyway, I love that concept from Dave. Another person that I wanted to mention is Brandy Augerbeck. Brandy Augerbeck. Brandy is another visual thinker and artist, and she wrote a really great book that this person who emailed me actually referenced as one of the books that they're going to pick up, but I wanted to include it because I agree it's great, and I have the book right here. It's called The Idea Shapers. It comes with some neat stickers, and there's a coaster, and there's like a printout here that explains her philosophies. But the thing that I think is great about this book and why I keep it as a book instead of something that I might just have notes on and I got from the library or something is that she has these different ways to use visuals to represent ideas, and so then you can go to one of these things and practice it. And I think that what's more than anything so important about visual thinking is practicing a lot, so that then you can easily draw what you need to draw. So for example, let's go to Phil. It's on page 259. So here, Brandy talks about. Here we go. Different ways that you can fill a shape. The shape is right here, a cylinder. It doesn't have to be a cylinder. We could do the shape we have right here. And we can start to fill shapes that we draw in different ways to just better understand what the effects are. And I think that's just such a nice way to pass time, especially during a meeting or something when you would be doodling, is just to play. I mean, you could just draw a series of the same shape and then fill it in different ways to better understand and also just get some confidence around the shapes that you're making. So anyway, this is an excellent book. Totally recommend it. Full of good ideas and good advice. So those are the two people that I wanted to kind of bring to mind. There are going to be people in this section too, and I guess in some ways Brandy Augerbeck is a book, or has a book. She's not a book. But in particular, just people to pay attention to that do things besides books, Brandy and Dave. In terms of books, there are a few books that I wanted to mention. I'm checking my notes because I didn't want to get this wrong. Okay, so the first book I wanted to mention is a book by Ivan Brunetti called Cartooning. This is a book that he wrote about a class that he teaches. It's actually a great book about teaching as well. And And I love this book. And in particular, he has some really lovely exercises that he has you go through. Lots of just kind of creating boundaries so that you can start to explore different ways of communicating visually and drawing shapes and stuff like that. And I found it to be so inspiring and fun too. And he is someone who is friends with and inspired co-conspirator with Lynda Barry, who is another person and book. I'm going to write this one down. Syllabus. Another great book about drawing, another great book about teaching, and also a great book about mindsets. So there are a ton of exercises in Lynda Barry's book. This is the book that she kind of documented a drawing class that she taught and what it was like and their different assignments, and you could go through the whole class just by reading this book. So it's just really wonderful. So I think this is great, but let me talk for a minute about the mindset. So let's just add Lynda Barry here. And then the mindset that I wanted to mention in terms of Lynda Barry is that she really helps to establish the legitimate fear that comes with drawing. So essentially, it is scary to draw. And there are reasons why it's scary to draw, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and draw and play, but she allows for that the emotional experience of drawing to be part of the drawing experience, and especially with something like graphic listening, where you're putting your understanding of what someone else is saying, where you could be wrong, out into the space so that they can see that. I think it's extra scary. So anyway, excellent mindset, very important, and wonderful person to be following. The other book that I wanted to mention is The Zen of Seeing. This is a book by Frederick Frank, who basically shows you how to draw in a very specific way, where you draw. Here's a good example. You draw something that you're paying attention to without looking at the page. And so this is a way that I have started to draw. Riding the bus or train, sitting out at a park bench or something like that, not sure what I want to do. I love to just start to pay attention to people moving around and just start to sketch them without looking at the page. And the drawings end up looking very busy and messy most of the time. Sometimes you really surprise yourself. But it is a wonderful way to start to practice drawing things in the real world without having to feel very responsible for what it is that you create, and having the point of the drawing just be the drawing and not what you actually make with it. Lovely, wonderful book. Lot of depth in this book about nature of reality and transcendence and stuff like that as well, if you're into that. But it's also just a really nice instruction for, I think, what the art community calls gesture drawing, maybe, but he calls just seeing drawing. So recommend that one. And then the last one I'll say for books is this book called Make a World. Now, Ed Imberly, you'll see in Dave Gray. That's right, Ed Imberly here too. He is a illustrator. I think he's written a lot of kids' books, and this book just takes you through all these really lovely, lovely drawings of just kind of industrial, everyday objects, and even some animals and different things, and shows you how to draw those things shape by shape. But it's just like the thing that you end up with in the end is so simple that it doesn't feel like you're following some tutorial, and then you get at the end and you have this thing that is more sophisticated than you actually could pull off. When you look at the thing at the end, you think it makes sense that I could draw that. It's just a few shapes. So I feel like he just allows you to draw something that has a lot of personality, but it's very, very approachable. And so Love, he's got lots of different books. This one I think is particularly helpful in the visual thinking realm because it allows you to just sort of practice some common things. Like, for example, if I wanted to draw a car right here, I kind of just know how to draw a car. And if I were trying to convey moving fast or an automobile for some reason in a thinking or listening episode, it'd be very easy for me to draw a car, and that's because I have practiced stuff like this. So that's that. The other mindset that I wanted to cover. So I've got Linda Berry's mindset, and I wanted to also talk about Twyla Tharp. And this is the last book I will share. It's Twyla Tharp, Creative Habit, Learn It and Use It for Life. This is a book about, it's not about drawing at all. It's about creativity, but it is, it's a book about someone who has been successful at being very prolific for a very long time, and her secret to that success being to create creativity as a habit. And so I would just maybe say that in addition to recognizing that there are thoughts and feelings when it comes to drawing, and some of them are scary, that also one of the things that makes drawing more possible in your life is just to create a habit of it. And that it's not so much, what you make or gearing yourself up or being ready as it is the ritual of just making drawing part of what you do that will kind of build the skills you need. Because you'll naturally find yourself needing to be able to draw a certain shape or a certain concept, and that's how you'll learn how to do it. And if you didn't have the habit, you wouldn't necessarily. So anyway, I just wanted to say that the rituals, that the mindset of having a habit of drawing is a very important thing. And I will say this is Linda Berry, and this is Twyla Tharp. Okay, and then the last point I will make is that in all of this, I think you can see that most of my drawing is actually just words and lines. If you take a look at this stuff, I'm mostly drawing either a line, a shape, an arrow, or a circle, and then a lot of words. And every once in a while, I'll pepper the drawing with an actual sprite of some sort, and that creates a kind of feeling that there's a lot of visuals here, but it's mostly just drawing very basic things and connecting those with ideas that I have with words. So feel free, if you're exploring visual thinking, to just really start with writing words and connecting them with lines and arrows and circles and squares, and see what you get. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this. See you next time.